In a lively city square, laughter echoed through the air, children playing, families chatting, and music filling the breeze. But beneath the surface of everyday joy, a single act of unfairness would spark an unexpected confrontation. When a rogue officer steps too far, an ordinary woman, unnoticed by many, takes a stand for what is right. Little does the officer know, the woman he challenges holds more power than he could ever have anticipated. What follows is a tale of bravery, justice, and the ripple effect that one courageous action can cause. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and share where you're watching from in the comments. Your support means so much to us. In the corner of the square near the basketball courts, a group of teenagers were engaged in an intense game, the sound of their sneakers skidding on the pavement. Officer Thompson, tall and broad, stood at the edge, his piercing eyes scanning the scene. His uniform was immaculate, but his reputation was far from clean. There were whispers about his quick temper and how he singled out those who seemed most vulnerable. He walked with an air of authority, one few dared to challenge, but it was that very fear that gave him unchecked power. Today, his nerves were stretched thin, his eyes darting around as if searching for trouble. At a nearby bench, Sarah, a quiet woman in her early 30s, was sipping a drink, enjoying a rare moment of peace. She laughed with her friends, her smile disarming, her presence barely noticeable, until a commotion caught her attention near the court. A young girl, Jasmine, was carefully balancing a tray of snacks as she made her way across the square. She accidentally brushed past Officer Thompson, causing a soda can to roll at his feet. "Watch where you're going," Thompson shouted, his voice slicing through the otherwise peaceful atmosphere. Jasmine, startled, bent to pick up the can. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Sorry doesn't cut it," Thompson growled. "You think you can just walk around here without a care? Show me some ID." Jasmine froze, her hands shaking as she set the tray down. The crowd nearby hushed, sensing the rising tension. "I don't have it with me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Typical," Thompson sneered, looming over her. "No respect. You need to learn discipline." Before Jasmine could react, Thompson shoved her back, hard enough to make her stagger. The crowd gasped in shock, a few of them pulling out their phones to record. "Hey!" A strong, clear voice interrupted the tense silence. Sarah stepped forward, her calm demeanor in sharp contrast to Thompson's fury. "That's enough." Thompson's glare deepened as he turned to face her. "This doesn't concern you," he spat. "It does when you're hurting a child," Sarah responded, her voice steady, unwavering. "Let her go." The crowd exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes bouncing between Sarah and the towering officer. Thompson's anger flared. "You have no idea who you're talking to," he hissed. "Do I?" Sarah's gaze remained unflinching, her tone sharp with quiet authority. The crowd murmured in surprise at her daring response. Thompson's face twisted with rage. In a flash, he swung his fist toward Sarah, aiming for her shoulder. The force of his strike was loud, but Sarah didn't budge. She stood firm, her eyes locked on his. Jasmine, wide-eyed and in disbelief, watched as the scene unfolded. The park had gone silent, save for the hum of phones recording the encounter. Thompson, seething with anger, took a step closer, ready to escalate. Sarah's response was calm but powerful. She reached into her jacket and pulled out her badge, holding it up for all to see. "Sarah Grant," she said, her voice clear, with a commanding presence. "FBI." The crowd collectively gasped. Thompson froze for a moment, his eyes widening as he processed the information. But his shock quickly turned into defiance. "You're in the wrong here. You're interfering with my investigation," he barked, his voice rising. "You have no authority." "Authority?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You're assaulting a minor and harassing her in front of witnesses. I think that's where you've gone wrong." Thompson's face turned red, his fists clenched tightly. "This is my situation, not yours," he growled. Sarah stood her ground, her eyes scanning the crowd, many of whom were still filming. "You assaulted a child. You attacked me." And now you're worried about authority? Thompson's hand trembled as he stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. You have one last chance. Stand down. Instead of retreating, Sarah stayed poised, ready for whatever came next. The crowd grew louder, their voices a mix of encouragement and fear. Without warning, Thompson lunged at Sarah, his fist flying toward her face. The crowd gasped, but Sarah, with practiced precision, sidestepped the punch, grabbed his wrist, and twisted it, flipping him to the ground in a single motion. The sound of his body hitting the pavement was loud and jarring. Gasps turned into shouts, some cheering, others in disbelief. Thompson groaned as he lay on the ground, but his pride was more bruised than his body. From his position, he called into his radio. I need backup. I've been attacked by a suspect. Sarah stepped back, her posture defensive but not hostile. You did this to yourself, she said calmly, her eyes scanning the crowd. Keep filming. This needs to be seen. Moments later, the sound of sirens split the air, and police cars skidded to a halt nearby. Officers poured out, hands hovering near their weapons as they surrounded Sarah, Thompson, and Jasmine. She assaulted me, Thompson shouted, still glaring at Sarah. She resisted arrest. Sarah raised her hands, her badge clearly visible. You all can see the footage, she said firmly. It's all there. Watch it. The other officers hesitated, some exchanging uncertain glances. The crowd buzzed, mixed with shouts of support for Sarah and murmurs of uncertainty about how things would unfold. Sarah's own resolve wavered for a brief moment as she remembered her father's words. Justice isn't easy, but it's always worth standing for, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed her frustration aside. She wasn't just standing up for herself or Jasmine, she was fighting for the principles her family had instilled in her. A child's voice pierced the tension. Is she going to be okay? Sarah looked at Jasmine, whose eyes were wide with both fear and hope. That was the moment Sarah knew what she had to do. Slowly, she raised her hands higher. I'm not resisting, she said firmly. Check the footage. You'll see everything. Thompson, still on the ground, shot a smug look as the officers moved to handcuff Sarah. About time, he muttered, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. Fear of the cameras, of the truth now beyond his control. As Sarah was escorted toward the squad car, the crowd erupted into chants and shouts. Jasmine, clutching her phone tightly, whispered, We'll make sure everyone sees this. The chaos swirled around them, but Sarah remained calm, her eyes steady and sure. Tension filled the air, but Sarah met Jasmine's gaze, nodding toward the crowd. Step forward, she said. Jasmine hesitated, glancing nervously at the officers. Sarah gave her a small, reassuring smile, and Jasmine moved toward the crowd, phone raised high. The message was clear. The truth would be shown. The phones lit up, streaming the footage online, as social media exploded with reactions. People rallied behind Sarah, condemning the officers' actions and standing in solidarity. As the video spread far and wide, it wasn't just about one confrontation, it was about something bigger. Officer Thompson, once untouchable, was now the subject of a nationwide conversation about justice, power, and accountability. That night, as Sarah watched the unfolding story on TV, she allowed herself a small smile. She had made her stand, and it was making a difference. It wasn't over, but the change had already begun. And in the end, justice found its voice, not in the form of power or authority, but in the hearts of those who refused to look away. In the end, Sarah's unwavering courage had sparked a fire that couldn't be extinguished. The truth, captured on countless phones, spread far beyond that park, igniting a conversation about justice, accountability, and the power of standing up for what's right. Officer Thompson's actions no longer went unnoticed, and the world began to demand change. What started as a single act of defiance grew into a movement, proving that even in the face of power, truth and integrity always find a way. Sarah's quiet resolve had inspired countless others, reminding us all that one voice can make all the difference.